Hi, and welcome to Off the Beaten Tracks, where savage retribution is just how we roll.
Hi, and welcome back to Off the Beaten Tracks. Today I'm talking to the man that Ronnie Hawkins called the hardest working man in show business, and who's also known as the blue-eyed Prince of Soul, Mr. George Olliver. Welcome, George.
How you doing?
I'm well. I hope you are as well.
Good, too. Yeah, it was amazing when you mentioned Ronnie Hawkins. It was Canadian show business. Because the hardest working man in show business is James Brown. There's no doubt about it.
Well, now that he's gone, I think you get the crown.
Really? Gee, I don't know. That's a pretty heavy responsibility.
You're up to it.
I'll take it.
I know you are. Well, I'm really happy to have you in here because we were discussing whom would be the first to come in to record their memories of the Toronto Sound, which you're one of the principals of. Oh. Yours was one of the very first names that came up.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, so
that's because I'm the oldest, I guess.
I don't think it's only that. I think it's also that you were there at the beginning with some of the biggest names in the Canadian Toronto music scene.
Oh, for sure. Like when we originally started out and came down from Willowdale and hooked up at the Blue Note, I saw all the well-known stars coming up from the States. And after their shows in Toronto, they'd come over to the Blue Note and sit in with the Silhouettes, and then after the Silhouettes, it was the Rogues and myself and Dominic and Whitey and Don Elliott, and it was a real experience.
I heard a rumor that Diane Brooks was actually really important in your development as an R&B singer.
Well, when I went down to see the Silhouettes the first time I came down to Toronto, because I'd been hearing about the Blue Note downtown Yonge Street, and I saw her, it was all over. I was a rock and roll fanatic, but when I saw her, rhythm and blues, soul, that was mine. She was wonderful.
Definitely one of, and her daughter as well, Joanne Brooks, who went on to play with Rough Trade.
That's right.
Lovely woman as well.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you got to the Mandala, because I know it was a little bit of a road there.
Well, as I say, I came down with my band, Whitey and the Roulettes, to the Blue Note, and then we took over the spot of the Silhouettes with the house band there, who were very good. When the owner of the Blue Note, Al Steiner, offered us the engagement because I'd been singing on the floor show, I couldn't believe it. It was the most prestigious engagement you could ever get as a band in Toronto. And so we came down, started to play as as Whitey and the Roulettes. Then Dominic came up from the Cock Door because he was playing with Ronnie Hawkins down there, and he saw the band and he was really, really taken with it. He came up the next week and asked if he could join, and I said, "What? You're in," because he was the #1 guitar player in Toronto at that time.
And he was not only an amazing player.
Oh, yeah.
Such a nice guy.
Oh yeah, he's good.
What a loss. Dominic Triano is a real loss for us.
Oh yeah, he was a great guy, but he was a great band leader too. He knew what he wanted. You did it, and if you didn't do it, you'd face the wrath of Triano. but we respected him, and we were all good friends with him, and we tried our best to live up to his reputation because we were just a band down from Willowdale. All of a sudden, we have the #1 guitar player in Toronto playing with us.
And you had Whitey Pettiglen on
Whitey,
drums.
Yes.
Amazing player as well.
He is amazing, but back then he was just another drummer. So was Don Elliott. But as we grew with the Rogues and the Mandala, we all developed our reputations through that band.
So now you took the Mandala on the road. You had a good manager. Was that was Randy Martin?
Yes.
Right. And
Markowitz was his last name, actually.
That's right. And he saw your potential. And he saw also the potential for the way the kids were going, for what they wanted to see. And so he was the first one to bring strobe lights into the scene.
That's right. He gave us a lot of our great show ideas for the Mandela. because we were just plodding along there. When he came in, he had some great ideas because he was a television producer. And no, it was a great benefit to have him as manager.
But you already had quite a reputation as a showman.
To that point, I was just developing. When he took over as Mandela, as the manager of the Mandala, he kept on pushing me with different little things I could put in my presentation with the Mandala, and he really helped me.
My husband tells a story about when the Mandela played his high school, and you were fronting, and he said you did such amazing moves, and one of them was you actually ran to one of the speakers and then somersaulted over to the other speaker and into a splits.
Well, actually, some of the speakers they placed on the floor, maybe just a little bit above the stage. And I remember once I got very daring and I ran and jumped over the speaker down onto the dance floor into the splits. That's one of the stories. Amazing, I can still walk.
Well, I've seen you perform fairly recently, and you do an awful lot of that stuff now.
Oh, yeah. Well, people expect it. I tried to quit about 10 years ago, and everybody got ticked off at me. What happened to the dancing? What's going on here? So I kept it.
So Randy sent you down to the States, and you spent a fair amount of time in L.A.
Yes.
And building a crowd there. Apparently, kids were really going nuts for what you were doing. So it was on the way back from L.A. that you stopped and recorded at Chess?
No, the Chess was first.
Oh.
We went into actually Randy took over the management of the Mandela, to change the name, and he said we're going to get a record going. He said, where are we going to record it? So naturally, Dominic and myself, we were big R&B fans, so he said Chess Records, because that was Billy Stewart, the Dells, a whole slew of great R&B artists coming out of that label. Mm-hmm. But they were American. So we were the first white band ever to record on that label, on their label.
Wow.
And record it in their studio.
And first Canadian band, I guess, as well.
Yes.
And the funny thing about Chess is, wasn't that label owned by two white guys?
It was. No, it was not the original label. But the spin-off we were on, mm-hmm. KR, off right. of Chess, mm-hmm. It was a subsidiary. That was Koppelman and Rubin who produced the Turtles and produced us.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been incredible. So let's talk about opportunity. You just have been inducted in the Hall of Fame, the Songwriting Hall of Fame, for the song Opportunity. Now, Dominic Triano wrote that song?
Yes, he did.
With your help, or?
No, he was sole writer on that tune, and we were very, very pleased to record that tune because it had a lot of changes, musical changes in it, which a lot of the record companies didn't want too much music. So, we went in and did it the way we wanted, and I had a chance to record it right in the vocal booth that Billy Stewart did Summertime. And I was on an all-time high. Yeah. So we did it down there, and we got it back to Canada, released it in Canada on the KR label through, let me see, up here it was Decca Records, I believe. And it was an instant hit. Yeah. We had to work to get it on Chum, but once it was on Chum, all the other stations right across Canada picked it up immediately.
Oh yeah, it was an amazing tune.
Yeah.
That must have been a real high point for you as well, that just getting that vibe. Now, had you done any decent recordings prior to that, like ones that had charted prior to that, or was that your first charted hit?
Oh, that was the first one.
Okay, so describe a little bit about how that must have felt. You've already got, you've got the club kids in your hands. Now you've got their ears. How did that feel?
Well, it was amazing how that thing started, because first of all, even before we got the recording, Randy Markowitz, who was our manager, got all the press going, and they came down and they heard about this group driving the girls wild on stage. And all of a sudden, we were getting front page newspaper write-ups in all the majors, and it continued on for like 2 years. And as I say, my mother kept all of them. I got them all. And it's not as if my career stopped when the Mandela stopped. I kept on going and still, was a notified artist out there. But Mandela was just amazing, and Randy was a big part of it.
And I think that when you left the Mandela, first you had George Olliver and his children.
No. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That was my first solo band.
Right.
And very, very proud of that one. Big horns section across the whole front of the stage and doing the dance steps, because I was a big R&B soul freak from the Club Blue Note. Although we went more rockish R&B when we had the Mandela. After I left the Mandela, I went back to my roots again, and I'm so glad I did, because it was my first love.
And you were based out of Kingston primarily for that segment?
No, we played Kingston quite a bit. I was based out of Toronto with both the Mandela and George Olliver and his children.
And then that band segged into
Natural Gas.
Gas, where you finally got a chance to really show your songwriting chops.
Yeah, I decided to just to remember how the Mandela got their first hit. And what was it? We got down the States and made a recording in one of the big studios with one of the bigger labels. So I got down to New York with Natural Gas. I hooked up with some people at a recording studio called Broadway Recording, because we were playing a big club in the Village, and they had come down to see us, Trudy Hellers actually. And and to make a long story short, we got in touch with George Goldner, who was a very, very big influence in Atlantic, and the Turtles producer, Joe Wizard. He got us going, and we got a chance to record Opportunity, Lost Love, Give and Take, and Toronto 67 were our two singles before we did the album. Mm-hmm. And the Opportunity was the #1 record of 1966 in Canada. And then Give and Take, which was our follow-up single, was not too far behind it.
I noticed that, at least on one of these songs, Diane Brooks actually made it onto Don't Make Me Cry.
Yes, she was, we got her in to sing some background on those tunes, and I definitely was pushing for that because she was my idol from the Blue Note.
There's a couple of things I want to ask you about this album in particular, and about your experience in recording with the Mandela. And one of them is, as a vocalist myself, I know what it's like to be in the sound booth and try and capture how it feels when you're singing live. Were you able to transition that sort of jumping around excited thing to actually standing there and hearing yourself so clearly? Monitors were not very good back in the days. You would have been hearing yourself really, really clearly.
Yeah.
And second guessing, I would think.
Yeah. Well, we had recorded some demos and some demonstration records with the Mandela, so I was no stranger to a vocal booth. But the thing at Chess Records in Chicago, I was recording Opportunity in the same vocal booth that Billy Stewart did Summertime, that huge hit, and I was just flying around on cloud 9. So that's why I hit with that high note and Opportunity. I've never hit it clean like I did in that on that recording session, and that was because of the surroundings and the vocal booth and being at Chess Records. It was a legendary label, and we were just so tickled pink to be on a subsidiary of Chess, Koppelman and Rubin. And our producer was Joe Wizard, who produced the Turtles. So
standing in the booth, how did you sort of draw into yourself that live energy that sort of comes more naturally when you're standing in front of an adoring crowd?
Yeah, it wasn't hard, because the band was so good. I mean, Dominic, and we recorded the tracks, and I just was in front of the tracks. And when they put my headphones on, it sounded like I was on stage. So I mean, it wasn't really that hard to get the energy into the recordings.
Oh, you really did get it there. Something fun that we found when we were looking at some of the little liner notes and stuff here was, it says on the bottom here, this album was recorded on a 4-track machine, except for Levitas, which was 8-track. Now, of course, that was Roy Kenner, so we'll leave that. Opportunity, Give and Take, Lost Love, and From Toronto 67 have been mastered from original mono singles, as the master tapes could not be found. So would that be the KR tapes?
That's KR, yeah, yeah.
So somehow they went missing.
That was much later. We always knew where those tapes were, but when Dominic went back to find them, because we wanted to remaster some of and remix some of the stuff, Koppelman and Rubin, who had the tapes, had disappeared. Nobody could find them. I don't know, they quit the business or whatever. It wasn't because of us. But no, and because of that, the tapes weren't stolen. They're with somebody in somebody's back room, and it's probably those two producers from KR.
Let's blame it on the Turtles.
Yeah, we blame it on the turtle.
When I mentioned on Facebook, on our Off the Beaten Tracks page, that I would be talking to you, I got a couple of stories from people. And there was one kind of interesting one that I thought was, now this fellow Brian, he said, ask him about the bit he used to do with his tie, AKA his soul.
Oh, well, that was, then again, a great idea from our manager, Randy Martin. We were trying to get a handle on what drove the audience nuts. So we just started to announce that the white ties that we wore on stage contained our soul, right? So, when I was whipping it around my head and getting ready to throw in the audience, all the girls and everything were going nuts. And I said, all right, this is my soul, and I give it to you. And I threw it in the audience, and they killed themselves trying to get it. It was just a shtick, but it worked.
That reminds me that I read something here that really surprised me. You got kicked out of the CNE. Fired from the CNE for George's dangerous display of emotion. What on earth did you do?
Well, you want to know something? There's Randy back in the picture again. We needed publicity. We went in there. We had a great show, and the girls that were, at the Hawk's Nest and all these other clubs were down at the CNE to see us. And, they get up and started carrying on and screaming and everything. And the producers were getting a little bit nervous. So that's basically the story. And I forget the question. What was it? Sorry.
You were fired for dangerous display.
Yeah. Well, we weren't really fired, but that's the impression we gave the newspapers. So everybody would want to see the band all that more. We had a great manager in Randy.
That was hilarious. Another question, or another comment that somebody put up, a woman named Linda Francis says, I have a story about George from Bobby DuPont in the days as the Royals. And apparently, she says, ask George if he remembers the night his intro was being played over and over again by the band because he was backstage desperately looking for his other shoe. Bobby had switched one out of the same style but a different color. Do you remember that?
I remember something about that, yeah. And I did find the shoe, but I was... Bobby had gone ahead and did two other numbers that we do together to keep the show rolling. So I got on stage about 10 minutes late. Oh, well. It happens.
Well, it sounds like they were really great times for you, working with some really wonderful people.
Oh, yeah. Well, Dominic Triano was just an amazing band leader and great guitarist. And, we had a great relationship with the Mandala. And even after, when I put together the Blue Note in the 70s, he was a big supporter. He was at all the time coming down, sitting in. Whitey and Donnie and the whole band, it was just an amazing story of how we went from a stupid little Willowdale clinkety-clink band into Canada's #1 for 1966. I was knocked out about it. I didn't know how it happened, but somebody out there liked us.
It sure seems to be. It seems like a lot of Canada liked you as well, and the world. It went on to become a big hit as well.
It did.
Thank you for joining us today as we talk to George Olliver, the hardest working man in Canadian show business. And we hope to talk to him again soon about some of his other albums. Thanks again for coming in.
Horse racing is a sport of kings, but skydiving is the sport of being buried in a pizza box.